The Elder Scrolls. Games chock full of lore. And Skyrim is no different. Hidden amongst the Draugr and dragons is a plethora of books full of very important and incredibly niche details. But with all the spellcasting and shouting you must do as Dragonborn, who really has the time to read all those books? I do. Apparently. I read every book in Skyrim in order to answer the eternal question, should you read every book in Skyrim? And I'm here to give you my top 5 recommendations of books, here in my Skyrim Book Report! Skyrim Book Report! How many books are there, really, in Skyrim? After all, there are only 8 people credited as writers on Skyrim. Those 8 people are responsible for every quest, every voice acting line, every response you can give to an NPC. How much time do they have to write all those other books? A lot! Because they wrote this many books. This many books. Or at least they wrote most of them, because a few of them have been grandfathered in from other Elder Scrolls games. Before I get into the nitty-gritty, let me explain my process on how I did this Skyrim Book Report! I printed out every book in Skyrim, and then I spent multiple 8-hour days reading every single book. I whittled it down to 338 books, because I didn't include journals or diaries. Everyone knows that self-published doesn't count. In total, that's 571 pages, 5.5-point font, over 316,000 words. I had 2 reactions to this. My first reaction was, wow, this is an incredible amount of world building. To write 300,000 words that could essentially be skipped over while still having the full Skyrim experience, it's amazing. And it's a level of world building that could only exist in an interactive medium. And for that, I commend you, Bethesda. My second reaction to this was, what the fuck? Hey, Todd? What the fuck? In my Skyrim Book Report, I will be discussing... That's a smash cut! Hopefully, if I do my editing correctly. 338 books. Actually 337, I just realized over here, Songs of Skyrim, I put both of them in there, but there's a revised edition. I lied, it's just 337 books now. Obviously, I don't have time to synopsize all of these, and believe me, you wouldn't want to watch that even if I could. I've split them into categories to make this a little bit easier. First up, historical books. These book titles you see rolling up the screen are all biographies or histories. What I categorized as histories was anything that had big historical dates in them, explanatory histories, or pretty much anything that was boring. History's so boring! J.R.R. Tolkien did the world a disservice by making every single fantasy writer think that they need to chronicle every goddamn minute of their world in order for it to be legitimate. I don't give 2 shits about a king who lost a war 700 years ago. Shoo! Get out of here! Some of these biographies are actually pretty interesting. But a lot of them are written like the Chronicles of Nehuleft. I didn't tab it out because it's a shitty story. It happened in Second Planting, PD 1220, that Lord Ichlandam, on a journey in the western uplands, came to Nehuleft, and Protector Ankard and General Rukthunch met him there, and Dalen Zanchu also came to the meeting. They talked together long by themselves, but this only was known of their business, that they were to be friends of each other. They parted, and each went home to his own colony. Riveting! Ugh, history's so boring. I'm done with this. Next category, instructional books. These are all field guides or basic recipes about how to make good armor or what flowers go in which potions. At best, they are in-fiction instructional books. At worst, they are so obviously trying to get you to go do specific things, pulls you right out of the fiction. Come on, man. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Everyone's favorite, the academic books. Fun fact about academic books that I learned in college is that no one has ever enjoyed writing or reading an academic paper. Why'd you put it in a video game? Mythical stories. It's kind of weird to differentiate things between myth and history, especially in this world where you can talk to demon princes. I split these 2 up because these are very boring, and these are slightly more palatable. They're more like creation myths, or they're just like random stories that are fun to read. So they're getting closer to good fiction. The poetic and dramatic. Everyone knows that poetry and theater are meant to be seen and not read. And you have no idea how much it pains me that I do not have time to do stage readings of all these. Oh my god, I would have loved that. We have What genre is It's the catch-all. These tend to be accounts, kind of like medieval fantasy op-eds, so I just put them here. We're done with these now, so. Get out of here! Finally, we have 59 books that I would consider good fiction. Good fiction. What I did here is I gave myself 3 criteria about what would make good fiction in the realm of Skyrim. Number 1, does it help build the world around us? Number 2, does it give us an interesting or different perspective on that world? And number 3, is it good? Now you might say, Brian, what gives you the right to say what is good fiction? I read all 338, you dingus! Believe me when I say that these were the only good ones. This is all I'm qualified to do now. I need a drink. Okay. Now there's still 59 of these, so I obviously can't summarize all of them, but I have left 5 off, and they are my top 5 books of Skyrim. So we're gonna talk about those. Number 5, Advances in Lockpicking. Now, Advances in Lockpicking is actually an instructional book, but I think it does more than just the other instructional books where you open them up and then suddenly you are better at lockpicking, because it's written by a thief in a very interesting voice. There's a great ending line for this book. Some thieves can't read. If you can't read, get someone to read this book to you. It'll make more sense then. That's great. I think that's a much more fun way than saying, here is how you pick a lock. This is what this set of armor is. Better than instructional, just good fiction. Number 4, Pala. In a world where crazy creatures exist, how do you make fiction that is compelling, that people can just kind of experience in their own life? Pala is a necromantic romantic book. It's a story about a man who sees this beautiful statue of a woman fighting a beast and falls instantly in love with this woman. Turns out, she's dead from fighting that beast. He decides to get into necromancy to bring her back from the dead. I kind of don't want to ruin the surprise for you. It manages to tell an interesting story while also introducing these ideas of monsters and necromancy. It's kind of weird, but it's very well written. I'm gonna go ahead and put up 3 and 2. Why do I put up the Argonian account and Feyfolken at the same time? Turns out it's written by the same fictional author, Wogan Jarth. This one's for you, Wogan. I'm a big Jarth head. He's not actually in the story at all. I couldn't find any instance of like him as an NPC, so I really hope he's in the next one, because I want to meet Wogan. I just want to meet Wogan Jarth. These ones were not actually written specifically for Skyrim. They were grandfathered in, but they do an incredible job of building the world around you. The Argonian account is actually the second story in a series all about Decamus Scotti. This is kind of like the Hobbit of Tamriel, where we're taking this unassuming character and thrusting them into this completely foreign, amazing landscape, except instead of a hobbit, it is a mid-level bureaucrat. It's full of screwball comedy and wonderful world building about the Black Marsh, which is where all the Argonians live. You have to fast travel by being eaten alive by a worm. That's great. I want to see that whenever we go to the Black Marsh. It's so flavorful, and that's why I'm a Jarth head. Feyfolken, it's a story about a scribe who's terrible at his job, but gets this enchanted quill that forces him to be amazing, sends him into this madness, and then he kills himself at the end of the book, spoiler alert. But that's not what the story is really about. It's an interesting fiction that teaches you about different Daedric princes, and which ones could have caused this specific enchantment on the quill. That's good world building! I am interested in the story, you told me something that I can learn about the world, I had a good time reading Feyfolken. Jarth, you did it again! And that leaves us with the number 1 book. It's not the lusty Argonian maid. I feel like I should broach this subject. I'll tell you why I didn't include it in my good fiction list, and it's not because I'm a prude. Who doesn't love a little erotic lizard fiction?
Ooh, come on, baby.
The reason I didn't include the lusty Argonian maid as one of the best pieces of fiction is because it's 7 acts long. 7 acts? There is no way you can manage to maintain that level of erotic tension for 7 acts. That's like 5.5 hours. As a person who has done 1 or 2 plays in my life, that's just unfeasible, okay? I'd like to see them try. I would like to see them try.
Ooh, come on, baby.
Before I go to number 1, I gotta go get a flu shot. This is not a joke. It's important to get your flu shot. All right, I'm back. The number 1 piece of fiction in Skyrim, not Wagon Jarth, I'm sorry. It's Beggar, Thief, Warrior, King. It's 4 books, actually, but it's all part of Eslaf Errol's story. It is completely fictional, even within the fiction of Skyrim. The reason I put it first is because it's the only book that was legitimately hilarious. I straight up chortled. That's what I did in real life. That's amazing. The writing style of these 4 books is just naturally hilarious. There are so many bland, cookie-cutter stories in Skyrim that follow the same setup, twist, punchline. This doesn't have that. It's just a good story. One of these writers was just flexing. And I think that's wonderful that a writer had a chance to, within the fiction of Skyrim, write something that's just naturally funny. You should all go home onto your computers, boot up Skyrim, find these 4 books, and then read them in order. It's worth it. That's my quest for you in Skyrim. 300 gold points. That's it. That's it. That's all of the books. So like, what did I learn from reading all 338 books of Skyrim? Surprisingly, a whole lot. Like, there are 2 main takeaways that I pulled from this. Number 1, this is a masterclass on how to write effective flavor text. Between all of these historical, instructional, the good fiction, and, you know, the iffy fiction. This is a way to learn what to do and what not to do. Obviously, not everyone is going to connect with certain types of flavor text. I'm sure there's a lot of people that disagree with me and think that the historical is the most important flavor text. And you know what? They are valid, and they're wrong. And they always seem to find my comment sections. When you take something good like Feyfolken, which teaches you about the Daedric princes, but in an interesting way, it really shines in comparison to the 3.5 million biographies of Berenzia. You don't even see them in Skyrim. I don't care about Berenzia. It's boring. But not like Feyfolken. That's really interesting and effective. Also, it's just like, teaches you about all these wonderful forms of fiction. If you're a fiction teacher, like, teach your kids with Skyrim. Teach the kids with Skyrim. I got a creative writing degree. That's all I have to say about that. Second takeaway, this is a wonderful teaching device about unreliable narrators. So many of these histories are negating other ones. This is a wonderful way of showing people you need to read everything if you're going to get the whole picture. I read everything. I am the keeper of the picture. That's every book in Skyrim. So it's time for us to revisit that ever-present question. Should you read every book in Skyrim? No! What? How could you watch this whole 10+ minute video and think I would say anything? What? No! I bore this burden for you! Don't read them! No!
Please, don't read them all.
Don't read them!
You can read the top 5, that's fine.
How dare you jettison my gift! Don't read them! No! If you want to see me keep doing things like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And now for a staged reading of the sultry Argonian Bard.
I could never perform your request.
Oh, is it too fast for you?
I fear I may damage my instrument.
Ah, but you seem to handle it so well, my darling.
My lady, you flatter me.
Well, it is such a large and magnificent piece.